Hey guys, in this video we'll be reviewing another jewelry trait of the 9 available ones to us as of the Summerset patch. I hope you guys have been enjoying those new Wolf Hunter DLC dungeons. Today we'll be looking at the trait Protective, represented in the form of this trait stone Titanium. Titanium dust, of which you need 10 of to refine into one trait stone, can be easily found on jewelry nodes, predominantly in Summerset. So it has been confirmed that Titanium dust in particular drops a lot more in this year's chapter zone of Summerset. But where you get the jewelry to initially research would be through the main Summerset questline and the main Psijic questline. So completing the main Psijic questline, which starts near Shimmerine, will grant you one protective necklace at the end of it. Completing the main Summerset questline, which also starts near Shimmerine and ends in Alinor, will grant you one protective ring. So a little bit of history about traits in this game before we start reviewing Protective. Traits, for the most part, have always been adjusted, changed, or completely transformed into something entirely different. The Sharpen trait used to be the best in slot for weapons many patches ago. Nernhoned was the best before that, and now many people, as of the Wolf Hunter patch, now use Infused and Precise under weapons. Armor trait wise, depending on whether you're a tank or healer, of course, was much more varied, especially if whether you're in PvE or PvP. Well fitted, for example, used to only reduce sprint cost, and now it does both sprint cost and dodge roll cost, so there's a bit more application there. Decisive trait used to be a trait stone that affected attack speed. And there were, of course, traits like defending and so on that could be and were used for PvP. The point is, ZeniMax has continually tried in their own way to make sure every trait in some way was, applicable to a build or a player's preference. And the traits in this game have come a really long way. Now with the introduction of jewelry crafting, we're given 6 more traits to play around with. Almost every single one pretty much seems useful on paper, on builds, including the original 3 of Robust, Healthy, and Arcane for different fights or builds. And that brings us to Protective. So Protective is a trait that increases your spell and physical resistance by 1844 on one jewelry piece, assuming that jewelry piece is gold. So both physical and spell resistance are capped at around 32,500. Meaning your mitigation without block up or anything else like debuffs or penetration taken into account is at a full 50%. For those of you good with math, it's roughly every 650 resistance for 1% damage mitigation. Without getting too sidetracked with this review, some of you can already see why Protective as a trait is largely useless, and probably the biggest loser out of the 9 jewelry traits. So most tanks in PvE run around 27,000 spell resistance, or like 24,000 to 26,000 physical resistance, depending on the sets you use. Most of the time, you don't need that maximum number for the maximum mitigation for hard content, including trials. So much less dungeons. Even the DLC ones, you don't really need that mitigation. And if you're a DPS or a healer, you don't typically need more than what you have at the moment, even in light or medium armor, for things like Maelstrom Arena, dungeons, trials, whatever, you can name it. The fact is even more amplified by the fact that we have a lot of champion points to help mitigate more damage. We also have unique buffs like Major and Minor Protection. We have Minor Ward and Minor Resolve. We even have skills and passives, to help mitigate incoming damage even further. Like the Draconic passives for Dragonite is a really good example of that. There's so many things we can do in this game to mitigate damage that more resistances are basically you don't need it. In fact, it's kind of been as reinforced. You don't really need too much of it, or even at all. So it's basically the jewelry version of reinforced. However, unlike reinforced, it is a set number. So assuming you have a gold jewelry piece, the maximum number from Protective will be 1,844. Reinforced, however, is a percentage value rather than a set value, which means it's a bit better than protective. In fact, I personally don't see any use for this trait when compared to the other 8 in either PvE or PvP. Perhaps it can be used for a niche build, or perhaps it's already being used by some people with not too much CP or not CP campaign. But when you look at the other 8 traits you could use, you're just missing out on too many other benefits. So in this video, there's absolutely no pros for using this trait, and there's quite a lot of cons. I mean, we just kind of went over most of it. So in summary, should you research this trait first? Should you use it? The answer is no, for those of you who aren't really too familiar with traits or research or whatever in general. I would be very interested to see what ZeniMax does with protective, considering that they do have data on how many people use what, and completely changing or readjusting this trait would be more than welcome, considering how little it's used by anyone so far compared to the other 8 traits. So anyway, thanks guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time.